Hello everyone, it's me, and today let's watch the game Theorists. Let's start. The signs.
Dear Phobia Game Studios. Hi, it's me, Austin.
Hello.
Carrion was my favorite game of 2020, and Matt told me I could do a video on it even though it's a bit of a niche, so here we go!
A bit of a niche, so here we go.
I was infatuated with this game when it came out, and I played it non-stop. Discovered one of the first soft locks by mistake, had to restart, played all the way through, found every single thingamabob, and oh my god, I love this so much. Can we get more reverse horror Metroidvania games, please? Because I have not had this much fun since playing AVP2 in college over a decade ago, and oh my god, I am so old, I'm gonna die soon!
Okay, so, oh my, your son?
Okay. Alright, here we go. Carrion. I spent a ton of time digging into everything this game has to offer, and it left me with one simple question. What the heck is the alien you play as? To get everyone up to speed in case you haven't played the game, and actually, if you have not played it, go play it right now. It's pretty cheap, and it's really good and relatively short. Stop this video, go play it, then come back. Okay? Okay. If you're still here, that better mean that you have played Carrion by now. Okay, so, a refresher. Carrion puts you into the shoes, or writhing tentacles of an alien monster? It's not really clear. There's some alien iconography in some places, but otherwise there's nothing to indicate that it's actually alien, other than it mostly doesn't resemble anything on our planet. Anyway, it's a monster of unknown-ish origins that's trying to escape confinement from an underground laboratory run by a corporation known as Relith Science, a private science firm, and that's basically it. That is it. Other than it's literally a standard Metroidvania game where you
A standard Metroidvania game thing?
run around past obstacles, obtain new tools that allow you to bypass new obstacles, backtrack,
New obstacles.
go to new places, bada bing, bada boom, and
Bada bing, bada boom.
infect the entire world with your writhing mass of tentacles. Okay, that last part is, I think, typically the lose condition for Metroid, but you know what I mean. There's more lore, which we will get to in a bit, but first I want to establish my theory up front. The Carrion monster that you play as is, I believe, entirely and thoroughly not an alien, and in fact originates on our very own planet. And in order to understand why I think this, we're gonna have to dig a bit deeper into the game.
Oh, so we play as the bad guy in the games. We are the antagonists. Which antagonist is the protagonist, isn't it? Anyways.
The background of Carrion is largely given through a series of flashbacks you can experience through plot devices that essentially show a group of scientists, presumably working for Relith Science, plunging the depths of an abandoned laboratory. Reasons aren't known, what they're looking for is not known. It seems to be constructed by humans. It has a bunch of human technology in it, like combat drones, stun guns, levers, keys, and similar construction to other Relith organizational buildings, but it also sports some antediluvian moss, which is, well, okay, so antediluvian means before the flood. The flood
Antediluvian.
in this case referencing the big flood in the Torah, where Noah built his ark and all that stuff. It's essentially a word that means prehistoric as heck. So that's not super clear of a descriptor. If it's a lab that's antediluvian, this can't be a human laboratory. As in antediluvian times, humans were at best agricultural, and at worst we were just hunter-gatherers. But given that the lab appears to be constructed very similarly to the other Relith lab areas with these grates and doors, it likely just means a sample of some really old moss. That's either meant to imply that the lab has been abandoned for a long time, or it was some old moss that was experimented on there. There's a couple of alien-looking things here, but given the work that Relith appears to be up to, it's totally possible that these aliens aren't aliens at all, and instead are just a product of fringe biological research. The
Biological research. Sometimes it can go off hand in the game.
flashbacks take place in the desert, which is reinforced by the companion comic story. Which desert it is unclear, and that really just doesn't matter. In the very bowels of this abandoned laboratory, a pulsing biomass is discovered. The thing that you play as. It infects a scientist in an attempt to escape and is discovered through bioscanner drones, whereupon it is presumably captured, contained, and transported to another facility. The facility that the game takes place in, right? Nope, not that one. And we know this because of the comic. The comic opens with a weird acting scientist meeting with a military consultant. They go into greater detail about the monster, its behaviors, some of which we will get into later, but the most important thing is they establish something incredibly key. The beast, the Carrion monster, learns. It learns from things it eats. It inherits instincts from the genetic code of its victims, or rather, if we're being a little bit more fair, its prey. And this is the first major key to understanding the Carrion beast, the amalgamation of teeth and tentacles, for what it really is. An animal with the driving need to survive.
Oh, driving need to survive and improve, I guess. Adapt.
And this is the first clue we need to understand that this monster has origins on Earth because, well, to put it simply, DNA is complicated. Not just anything can interact with DNA. It's a very specific evolutionary characteristic of life on our planet, and something that not only eats us, but gets useful genetic data from us by eating us, has to either be from here or specifically designed by someone else to mess with us. We learn this from the monster themselves, as the scientist that's been taken over by the thing explains. It learns from what it eats. It absorbed biological instincts from the worms. Desire to survive, desire to grow, desire to eat. But this is impossible, right? I mean, I eat steak sometimes, but I don't suddenly start growing horns or udders. When I eat plants, I don't attain the ability to photosynthesize. What I eat is broken down to more basic molecules, including the DNA within the plants and animals, which are then used by my body to build its own stuff out of this raw material. The DNA of a cockroach that's in my chicken fingers ain't gonna give me bug powers. This whole learns from what it eats thing is totally ridiculous, right? Absolutely, positively wrong. Humans, and as far as I know, all mammals and probably all vertebrates, and probably even most invertebrates, behave in this exact way. They eat something, break it down to its most important building blocks, and use those to build more blocks of itself before it goes.
More blocks of itself, isn't it what we do? Tell me more, I'm intrigued.
Goes on to reproduce, combining its DNA with the DNA of a mate, creating some random mix of the two, which adds to diversity down the line. Bada bing, bada boom, you got a species and you have evolution. But some species on this planet choose another way, another path toward genetic diversity. There's viruses, of course, which are so objectively weird that it's still hotly debated whether they count as life at all. And then there's bigger stuff, multicellular stuff. Stuff like rotifers of the class oh my god, I am never gonna be able to say that word. Stuff like the rotifers of the class Bdelloidea, microscopic, multicellular organisms that don't have sex to reproduce, but still show a remarkably large amount of genetic diversity. Why? Because they steal DNA from their food and incorporate it into their own bodies. They essentially steal biological diversity from their prey. Spooky stuff. But it's not just animals that can do this. In the ancient times, the first plants on Earth were just algae, single-celled organisms that use photosynthesis to survive. Eventually, when food started to exist on land, the algae moved there from the water, which required a ton of adaptation. Moving from being constantly wet and relying on all the things that exist in water to surviving on dry land is a huge evolutionary hurdle to leap over. So instead of evolving slowly over time, the single-celled ancestors of algae Spirogloia muscicola just stole the genes for dry tolerance from bacteria that lived in the soil. I'll just take that, yoink! Knowing this, combined with the small amount of exposition from the comic, everything falls into place. Every power you get in the game while playing is another bit of biomass DNA that you pick up. Why is it even there to begin with? Well, it all goes back to Relith science. In the comic, it's made clear that the humans are intentionally experimenting on the thing in order to suss out its abilities and limitations. It eventually breaks containment, because of course it does, sneaks into Seattle, and apparently causes quite a bit of havoc there until it is contained once again. Third time's a charm, right? No, it gets out because of course it does. How? Probably some of that intelligence it picked up from the lab mice that it ate. Basic puzzle and maze solving, it's not entirely clear. Along the way, it stumbles into DNA samples that provide it with more powers and abilities. Some of them are actually pretty easy to source. Echolocation, bats, shrews, dolphins, and beluga whales all have incredibly powerful echolocation abilities. Arachnotisis, shooting webs, we got spiders for that. Things like photokinesis are a little bit science fiction-y, but have you ever seen an octopus camouflage itself? They are really good at it. Keratosis, the shield power it can develop, was probably the hardest power for me to figure out, since that's really not something a ton of animals can do, just produce keratin on demand. Keratin is the stuff that makes up fingernails and hair, and it's incredibly tough and complicated stuff. It's difficult to synthesize on demand, but then I learned about the fugu takafugu I almost made it through. Then I learned about the fugu Takafugu rubripes, a pufferfish that is incredibly popular among genomic scientists, in particular because of its small genome that's easy to map and compare other things to. There's no way that a place that was doing advanced research into genetic diversity and abilities wouldn't have some Fugu Takafugu rubripe samples laying around. And what's more, the Fugu Takafugu rubripes is capable of producing semi-spontaneously a form of keratin mucus that protects it from invading fungi. Not quite a protective shell against explosions, but it's what I got. Parasitism doesn't even seem that hard at this point. There's plenty of organisms that can control brains, even human brains. It's just about cranking that ability up to 11 and forming
Up to 1 million.
itself into a perfect human replica. Well, we'll get there.
We'll get there.
But this doesn't answer the questions, the things I really want to know. If it can absorb DNA from what it eats, why doesn't it just eat a person, become a person, and do whatever it wants? The other question is, where the heck did this thing come from? I'm gonna answer the second one first because I think it's easiest. Where did it come from? It was made by people, probably the Relith science people. They created an organism, probably even a manipulated form of Bdelloidea rotifers, that took this DNA stealing up to the next level. And it was safe at first, just a hyper-evolutionary water creature, until it kept going. It got samples it wasn't supposed to, got into some tubifex worms, got into some humans, dogs, cats, and who knows what else. Bacteria, plants, lizards, anything that would make it bigger and smarter and more complicated, and it spiraled out of control. Humans made this thing while studying genomics, and in so doing created a monster not unlike the one Dr. Frankenstein created, except this one is an amorphous, writhing mass of hunger and consumption. But then the latter question, if it can steal DNA from anything at all, why doesn't it just eat a human, learn how to change into one enough to pass the scanners, bada bing, bada boom, world conquest? Well, this is because of one final little nugget given to us in the comic, that if it eats something that has a survival instinct that conflicts with its own, it can create problems. Like if it absorbs the DNA of too many humans that want to see it dead, it will quite possibly want to kill itself. So it needs something without that instinct. Early on, the humans that stumble upon it in the abandoned lab probably don't have that instinct because they don't even know what they're up against, but the rest of the labs, they totally do. So it has to be extraordinarily careful with what DNA it absorbs and what it just eats for energy. Not just any sample of human DNA is gonna work, and that's why it has to go to the heart of the facility to unpack the prize. A completely untainted sample of human DNA. Where did it come from? Who knows? But it's clearly important because it's behind so much security and it offers precisely what the creature needs to escape. A perfect disguise. Humans created something that they didn't fully understand, and in trying to understand it, they created a literal monster. Why? Who's to say? Maybe they were studying cancer or longevity or new forms of gene therapy or biological weaponry. Who knows? But here's the real question you're probably asking. Could this thing exist in real life? And
Could it exist in real life? Is this possible? I don't know.
the answer to that is, it already does. And it's right behind you, Jason! Nah, I'm just kidding. This thing is totally a work of fiction. DNA isn't like Game Boy cartridges where you can just modularly insert them into yourself like a device and have it do whatever thing it did on another animal. If someone gave me bird wing DNA, I wouldn't just grow bird wings. Plus, the rate at which this thing grows is absolutely absurd. It would let off a ton of heat. Like, for an example, there's this dubious claim that John Brower Minoch was able to gain 91 kilograms in a week. This sounds implausible and the citations are kind of weak, but let's say that it is real. This is nothing compared to what the monster gains. It's able to gain biomass in seconds, hundreds of pounds in minutes if we're being generous. This would be letting off so much heat that the darn thing would be smoking, letting off fire, and be in danger of its proteins denaturing. This thing is purely a work of fiction, thank God. No caveats, no buts. Worst case scenario, we could make some sort of monster that every year could grow an extra brain or mouth or something, but that's just about it. None of this, it has become a towering skyscraper monster in 2 hours and has about 15 magic powers stuff. But just in case I am wrong, don't go experimenting too much on those little asexual rotifers, please. Pretty please? Just don't do it. I really don't want to die. I do want another Carrion game though, so make one now, Phobia Games. Sincerely, Austin.
Austin, thank you.
And I want to give a personal shout out to my top tier patrons: Iz B, Mads Jurgensen, Ronald Coleman, Jared Beecher, Alan Hagers, Adadam TP, Nicholas Blinger, Marissa Resnick, and Mazer. You guys are awesome. You're the best patrons I could ever have. And if it weren't for you guys, little goofy videos like this one would never exist. Thank you so much. Mwah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching this video. This video got a dark twist into it, but luckily it's just fiction. Please be fiction. Just be fiction. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next video. I hope that this video is quite fun to watch, entertaining to watch for you. Thank you so much. If you do like this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and comment down below if you have anything to share with us. Thank you so much, and don't forget to follow my channel. And I'll see you in my next video. But hey, that's just the signs. The signs off. Thanks for watching. you. This video came up from my YouTube channel, The Game Theorists, back in the year 2021, this year. If you do like this video, please remember to watch more of their videos and show support for them because their videos are very interesting to watch. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Because for me, I'm a huge fan of their work, so yeah. Anyways, thank you so much. Bye bye. Oh yes, one more thing. Subscribe. Thank you. Thank you.